All right, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 360 Stacks in this thing, baby, representing TKOG. Thank you, Lord Jesus. And today I'm gonna be updating pure Shaddolls for you guys. So this is a great option whenever you don't know what to play, or you're not comfortable with the decks that are currently out, or you just don't feel like you want to play the meta. I always would recommend to people playing decks like Shaddolls, Herald, Dragon Maid, Plunder Patrols. I mean, the list could go on, but those are ideally, like, those are decks that, even though they're not meta, their ceiling is high enough to still be able to contend with meta decks, and you'll still be able to have a good time playing them because they're also very fun and they're really versatile as well. So I love when decks have the level of diversity that's applicable in not just one matchup, but in almost every matchup. You've got to kind of cover all grounds with just the toolbox, like the tools that every arsenal that I just mentioned at their disposal, like the tools they have at their disposal, are very vast, and it's not really predicated to one specific playstyle or one matchup. And Shaddolls are kind of just the goats. I'm sorry, my nose is running a little bit. But yeah, the Shaddolls they're pretty much just the goats when it comes down to that. I feel like this deck is like, it's comparable to Strikers, but Strikers is not as old as Shaddolls, so Strikers is kind of like Shaddolls when you think of it. It has such a diverse and vast toolbox. It has effects that allow you to get out of so many different sticky situations, and there will be times where your opponent will have a setup that most other decks would not be able to do anything about it, but Shaddolls, I said Shaddolls without an H, but Shaddolls somehow find a way to always come out on top, bro. I mean, the deck's just amazing. It's super strong. There's a level of simplicity when it comes to just summoning Winda and winning games, so if you also just don't want to think too hard, you can focus really hard on just getting access to Winda and going first. But where this deck really shines, I feel, is it excels in building temple and maintaining that temple. It gains advantage and maintains the advantage. It'll snowball resources, and it has a really, really great level of recursion that allows you to just maintain that stability that makes you feel really comfortable that no matter what happens to your board and no matter what game state we're in, you will always have a play, you will always have a follow-up. There's always something that you can do about what your opponent is trying to do to you. This deck is very reactive, but there's a proactive aspect to it in regards to just Winda. Sorry, you guys, like I said, my nose is running right now. But yeah, Winda is the only proactive aspect of this deck. Outside of summoning Winda and hoping that your opponent doesn't have an out, this is a very reactive deck. It's normally just played in the sense that you are going to be controlling the game state, but also you can play very hyper-aggressive and just go second. The deck is really good at breaking boards and making boards in the process. It's really good at navigating through interruptions, and there's not a lot of hand traps that really affect this deck. Ash Blossom, I would say, probably has the highest impact only on Shaddolls Fusion alone. But if you're starting your plays with a fusion spell that's not Shaddolls Fusion, it's very hard to hand trap this deck because of the amount of effects that will be chain blocked and allow you to pretty much protect the line of play that you want to go in that route. So I think this deck is great. That's kind of like the brief synopsis to cover over Shaddolls. To anyone that's new to the deck, it's a phenomenal archetype. It really is. It's one of my favorite decks of all time. And honestly, I'm still playing it to this day. I've been playing it ever since it came out, and I've never stopped. So this is my list, you guys. This is pure Shaddolls. It's more of a budget-friendly deck. But I didn't make it a pure Shaddolls deck profile just to say, hey, here's budget alternatives. Because the Dogmatica cards are so cheap now, it seems like Dogmatica Invoke Shaddolls is really not that expensive anymore. There's like expensive cards in this deck like Prosperity, but like I said, this is not a budget deck. So now that I've got all of that out the way, my final statement before I get into the profile is if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. If you are subscribed, make sure you click the notification bell. And if you want to support my channel in any way, shape, or form, highly recommend joining the Patreon and becoming a member of the Discord channel. Either and all of the above will be very, very helpful. You can do all, or you can do one of them, or you can do none. I'm not tripping on you, homie, I promise. But let's get into it. Sorry for the rambling, but like I said, or like I always say, if you are here for the list, you can take a screenshot and go. You know, you don't have to listen to me talk at all. Because I definitely don't want people to get upset that I talk about things about the deck profile instead of just going over the list and just ending the video. So we're going to start with the most powerful cards in the deck, which is the Shaddolls monsters. My ratios are different from what they normally are. And that's just from strenuous playtesting. Like, I test a lot with this deck. Every format, I just feel like there's always a place. Like, this deck will always have a spot in the meta. Right now, I'm playing 2 Squamata, 2 Windy, 2 Hog, 2 Aerials. I'm on 1 Beast. I am playing Genius. Genius is always going to be a flex spot for me, but I like being able to play Genius when it's like not me going out of my way to play it. So I'm not going out of my way to play it in this list. It fits very perfectly. This allows you to pressure the virtual world boards a lot because the typical virtual world board that will have Shinshin, Crystal Wing, and Chuche, you can force the entire board with just a fusion because you can dump Genius and you can dump Dragon, summon Ob Cologne, Chain Block, and you can permanently negate Shinshin and have Genius negate Crystal Wing. And basically, the only thing that your opponent will be able to respond to is the Shaddolll Dragon with the Chuchi. But the reason why they're going to activate Chuchi anyways is because even though Crystal Wing would negate the Dragon, because Dragon will always be Chain Link 3. I would put everything lower than that. Or you can even, because I mean, the way I see it is like Chuchi always gets forced anyways, but you can even just put Genius as Chain Link 3 since that's meant to bait Crystal Wing anyways, and then Dragon will resolve. But the thing is, when you activate Shadow Fusion Summon Ob Cologne, if you're permanently negating Shinshin, they're going to chain Chuchi regardless because they're going to want to get that Ob Cologne in the banish zone so that you won't get any more follow-up off of that play. So Shadow Fusion, by playing Genius, literally forces Crystal Wing, negates Chuchi. Forces Crystal Wing, forces Chuchi, and negates Shinshin off one card. And if they don't chain Chuchi, then you're literally just going to get another follow-up off of one card. So like, it's worth playing it, especially this format right now, because I see Virtual World is very popular right now. You have a lot of different decks that are utilizing the Punk engine and also utilizing the Tingy engine, the Brave token stuff. You know, you've got a lot of generic applicability splashing cards, and I see Virtual World pretty much running all of them. The Punk stuff, the Brave token stuff, they're running the Halku Fibrax package, you know, and their inboards typically do look like that. Most of the time, it is Crystal Wing, Shinshin, and Chuchi. It depends on the variant. Sometimes it looks different, but that's the go-to board that I see a lot. And I just wanted to point out, since I was talking about Genius, that because I play him, Shaddolll Fusion can literally out that entire board by itself. It just makes it such a powerful card. Falco's my baby. I always play Falco. I never cut him. I think Falco is just way too slept on in general. Dragon is just incredible. Like, even though Imperial Order is gone, the fact that you can always be able to out Floodgates, and it activates Engrave, so you can stop stuff like Skill Drain with it. You were always able to use this to out Imperial Order. Whether you were chaining El Shaddolll Fusion to the activation, or just utilizing Schism or Mathematician when I was playing Mathman. You know, there's different ways, but Dragon's always going to be able to out Floodgates for you, outside of just Ob Cologne permanently negating them. And the cool thing, I'm going to talk a little bit about Skill Drain since I mentioned it, because it is at 3, and people just always talk about that card just because it's at 3, is this deck doesn't really struggle with Skill Drain like other decks do. Not just because you can send Dragon and that's a graveyard effect, but because you can always activate, thank you Lord Jesus, you can always activate your Fusion monster's effects, and then you can chain Fusion spells like El Shaddolll Fusion, Super Poly, or you can even chain Schism, and because that will resolve backwards, it will remove them from the field so that they are no longer being negated by Skill Drain, and their effects will resolve. That is how I've always played around Skill Drain. I used to do that against True Dracos. I would activate my construct. They'd be like, okay, Monarch's Erupt is up, so your effects are being negated. I'm like, okay, do you have a response? No? Okay. Monarch's Erupt, that's fine, whatever. Chain El Shaddolll Fusion, you got a response, I would remove construct off the field, she would resolve, and then she'd dump Dragon, and Dragon's graveyard effect would pop the Monarch's Erupt. And the other thing is, the Skill Drain will never negate your graveyard effects, so even your Fusions floating will still keep you in the game. It's really, really strong still. Not just because of Dragon, but just because of how the deck's played. You don't really struggle with a lot of Floodgates. You really don't. You can sit on TC Boo, and you can play under it. You can play under Rivalry. You can play under Gozen. There's just not very many Floodgates that hurt this deck because they all can be outed and dealt with in your own time. Like, you really don't have to rush it, because if your opponent's using a Floodgate that also affects them, you can actually turn it back around on them, where the Floodgates start hurting them more than it hurts you. But yeah, that's the Shaddolll ratio that I'm on right now. It's not too much, but it's just enough. Playing pure Shaddolls, you actually do want to open at least one Shaddolll monster. And as you can clearly see right here, I'm playing 14. You got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. And, well, I'm sorry, it's actually just 13. But yeah, I'm playing 13. I was also playing Emergency Teleports. I was playing 3 E-Teles so that I can access Ogre, and also so that I can access Shaddolll Windy. That's something that I was toying around with. I actually forgot to take my Ogre out when I was last testing with that list, but I'm going to keep the Ogre in for right now. But yeah, I was messing around with Emergency Teleport, not just for the Ogre, but to access Windy, because weird hands, you'll sometimes just have to E-Tele a Windy, normal a Shaddolll, and then make Construct and actually do your play that way. But this is a healthy amount of Shaddolls. I'm totally fine with this. Then I'm going to go over my normal summon now because I'm not playing Mathman right now. The main issue being is because I'm not playing like a heavy polymerization package like I used to, because I wanted to play more hand traps and I wanted to play the DPE package, and I wanted to bring you guys a pure Shaddol deck profile that wasn't 60 cards because I always do that, and I wanted to do something different. If I was not trying to play, not 60 cards, I would have my Fright Fur package with my Edge Imp Chains. I would have my Lunalight Black Sheep and my Tinky. I would have Wolf, the Lightsworn a Beast Warrior to search off Tinky to get lights to make... I do so much stuff with pure Shaddolls. I can make it super, super consistent, even more consistent than this list is, but this list is consistent enough. It's just enough. I'm not going overboard on the fusion spells. I'm not going overboard on the Shaddol monsters because I'm trying to keep it under 60 cards. 46 was the lowest I was able to get. It could be 45 because, like I said, I was only playing the Ogre because I used to play 3 E-Tellies, but when I took my E-Tellies out to update my list, I forgot to take my Ogre out. But she's going to be chilling anyways. So yeah. This is my new normal summon for right now. I'm running Riona because she's basically just going to be a 2-for-1. She's a light and a fusion material. She's a light and a fusion spell. So all you need to draw next to her is just any Shaddol monster, and you have a full combo right there. It's really, really nice. And then next up, so we have Foolish Burial. This is a flex spot, but it's always good to play in pure Shaddolls. This can be an Upstart, a triple DD Crow. This can force Crystal Wing by itself. This could just access any Shaddol you want. It has a level of utility that's very unrivaled because it is basically Mathematician without a normal summon. Then we have 3 Prosperity. These are pretty much all of the ways that I have to access a Shaddol monster. So if I don't draw any of these, the only other way that I can access my Shaddolls is through Shaddol Fusion going second. So you could look at these, like this entire lineup right here, from here up here, is every single way that I have to access a Shaddol monster minus the 2 Rionas. And speaking of fusions, so I am running 3 Shaddol fusions. This card is very, very good this format. I will say, yes, there are a lot of people that are on DP and Scythe, which, pretty much, I feel like it's a good thing because it's obviously, it just wins games by itself, but it also takes away from the identity of the deck because there's so many decks that can just DP Scythe block you that it becomes you're not really playing the archetype anymore. Like, Phantom Knights sometimes don't even summon Rusty. They just literally go straight into Scythe and DP, and that's it. I don't even see a Fog Blade half the time. And they might have the Brave stuff, and at that point, it's just like any deck can do that, you know what I mean? Like, any deck that can vomit 4 monsters can make 2 Link 2s that are generic and just DP Scythe Lock you. So, yes, Scythe Lock is real, and that's what makes Shaddol Fusion not as good in certain matchups, but in the matchups where you're not getting Scythe Lock, this card either forces negates, it trades with an Ash Blossom, or it breaks board by itself. And in the process, gives you follow-ups. You can full combo off of just this card going second. And then speaking of my favorite Shaddol fusion spells, actually El Shaddol Fusion. I like this a lot more than Shaddol Fusion simply because it is quick play and I can activate it in any phase I want. I say this so many times, but I'll say it again. This card plays around Droll and Lockbird, Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, Fleur de Lis, Shaddol Schism. It plays around Dragon Maid Tiding, Chuchi. It plays around Anti-Spell Fragrance. The card plays around Skill Drain. That's at 3. It plays around Conquistador. The card is just, it's absurd. It's so good. It plays around a lot more, but just listing those because those are all relevant things that I should be talking about. It plays around so much more than even that. The card is just absolutely ridiculous. It's pretty insane. This card plays around Revolt. It's just ridiculous, you guys. It really is. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, El Shaddol Fusion is just a very disgusting card. It's just too good. It even plays around the Scythe Lock. If you have it in your hand and they activate Scythe, you can chain El Shaddol Fusion. But the cool thing with this deck is you also don't have to chain El Shaddol Fusion. You can just set El Shaddol Fusion and you can play reactively on your opponent's turn. That's another cool thing with this deck. With cards like Super Poly and Shaddol Fusion is you don't have to summon from your extra deck at all on your turn. You can set and pass, and it'll really look weird. Like, it'll look like you're just stalling for time, like just basically prolonging the inevitable. But the reality of it is that your opponent has no idea what's coming to them the next turn. Because, especially when it comes to Phantom Knights, if you flip a window on the follow-up, you're not going to die. Unless they have an out to window, they're either going to have the Scythe already up to be able to beat over window, which means they're throwing their battle phase and you're not going to die. You're already getting all the advantage you got off of the El Shaddol Fusion. Then you get the El Shaddol Fusion back to your hand. And then, to top it all off, if they don't have a way to beat over Winda, you're ending their turn. And that's excluding the fact that you could just dump Aerial and take all their follow-up in the process. If you're fusing with Squamata or if you're fusing with Aerial, either one of those four, you're going to take their follow-up in the process of summoning Winda and forcing their battle phase. And it's not just for Phantom Knights, but just in general, setting El Shaddol Fusion if you get Scythe locked is one of the best plays that you can make in this deck. And not most decks that get Scythe locked can't really do anything about that. They have to pass turn and pray for the best. But with Shaddolls, all it's doing is making you make the play that you would have made on your turn on your opponent's turn. That's what you can do with this deck. You get another main phase that doesn't really belong to you. The same with Super Poly. People that aren't smart, that don't pop their Verde and Ikanas get punished. That's the reason why I play Starving, because I run into a lot of people that don't pop use their DPE to pop their Verde. Or they actually do summon Rusty, and then they're sitting with Rusty DPE with Dagda, and they try to Scythe lock me, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to use draw phase priority because I get the first action at the start of every one of my phases. So I can use draw phase priority, activate Super Poly, fuse away the Rusty Bardiche and the DPE, and they don't get a chance to Scythe lock me because I use my priority to get the first action. And this card cannot be responded to by pretty much everything unless you're using like Magician's Hand. So continuing on, we have Majesty's Invocation. And the other thing that I should mention is that Dragon Link is also creeping back into the meta. So when you've got decks like Dragon Link, you've got decks like the Lunalight Tri-Brigade deck, you've got decks like Virtual World, you've got Shaddol Dogmatic at Invoke, which is a very popular meta deck, and then you've got Phantom Knights. This card is very good against all those decks. This is a good going first card, it's good going second. The thing is, no matter what you summon off of it, you get to trade resources with your opponent first. So even if I, let's say, Super Poly'd a Dragon Link board and I summoned Winda, and they're like, I can out the window, I took a card from you in the process, which is really, really powerful. So Super Poly is just insane, you guys. More often than not, what I'll do is I'll set a Shaddol and then Super Poly away the Heretic Seal and chain block my Construct. And then I'll use Construct in Battle Phase to force the Borreload Savage or the Hot Red, because she will kill them if they don't negate it. And then after they negate her, because neither one of those cards destroy her, I'll just link her off into Gravity Control or Cross Sheep, use her effect to recur a resource. And you play into those established boards so easy. Shaddol, if you guys have not seen me cracking through 4 or 5 negates, you guys have really missed out on some good stuff. But Shaddolls are very, very, very good at breaking boards. As long as you activate fusion spells and you're chain blocking, bro, there's so many negates that you can nullify. More specifically, hard monster negates, this deck just plays through them like it's nothing. If you can't negate the fusion spell, it's just going to be way too hard to navigate through anything at that point. So this deck's just very, very good at going first, going second. I don't care half the time when I lose the dice roll. I literally don't care. And you guys know that. If you've seen my profiles, you hear me talking about blind seconding against Virtual World half the time I play them, because the deck's just so good. And then we have 2 Fusion Destiny. I am playing DPE because it synergizes so well with this deck. Like the recursion you already get off of Shaddolls, it's like steroids for an already good deck, basically. There's so many cool interactions where DPE can get you more benefits by popping more Shaddolls and getting you more resources. The loop with Rest Shaddol, Incarnation, summon Op Cologne per negate, DPE pop the Op Cologne and another card in your opponent's field, get Op Cologne's effect, just add core, discard core, add Rest. You can do that without DPE, but the fact that it's just easier to do now because you're sending your Op Cologne to the grave whenever you want to. You have that infinite loop. You'll never run out of resources as long as you can loop Falco and Core and Resh with Op Cologne. You can recycle your extra deck. You can recycle your main deck. It's just insane. Like, DPE is just a force to be reckoned with. And then as far as hand traps go, I don't play a lot because I don't need a lot. I play Nib because it's a light and it covers all grounds for every deck that could even pose a threat to me, because Eldritch is the buy. I'm sorry, you guys. Sorry, not sorry. Eldritch has always been the buy from the jump. Ever since the deck came out, it has been the buy. I've never struggled against this deck. I've never lost to Eldritch playing Shaddolls. It never even made me sweat, bro. And then we have 3 Gamma and 1 Driver. This is a staple hand trap if you're playing Pure. You want your power plays to resolve. You want El Shaddol. You want Shaddol Fusion. You want Prosperity. You want all those cards to resolve. So when you're going second and they have Ash and you have Gamma, they're getting punished and they're getting clapped, because you're going to go right into the Cross Sheep after that and you're going to do your full combo Boar Sword, kill them, or play the wrong game. You know, you don't have to play into Nib if you don't want to, because the deck, normally people just don't play Nib against you because you never can really be nibbed. And if they can nib you and you don't have Winda, everything they nib gets an effect in Grave. So they give you so much just for trying to prolong the inevitable. It's just, yeah. And then the Ogre that I told you I forgot to take out. Then we have Golden Lord. This is my light target of choice whenever I'm summoning Construct off of Shaddol Fusion. The card's just insane, you guys. It puts so much pressure. into every single turn. Every time your opponent tries to establish anything, Golden Lord can trade with those cards and just be an oppressive threat every single turn. All the spells and traps that you normally send off of him are Shaddolls, which means whatever you send for cost off him will be added back to your hand, so you get free resources to play through Golden Lord. Sometimes I will add him from grave to hand and not special summon him, just so I can discard him and another card just to be able to dismantle a threat, and then next turn I'll do the same. So he's also spot removal for you every single turn. The card's just incredible. We also have Celestial and Dasher. You already know these are like the best targets when you're playing DPE. These just, you already have so much going on with your grave as far as follow-up that it makes it's ridiculous. That's what I was saying, like with this deck, your boards can be broken and you'll just reestablish so easily. And the fact that your opponent has to navigate your boards in such a specific way because of how your cards interact, if they touch the grave, you get something out of it. So it's just really, really annoying to play against this kind of deck when you're breaking your boards with conventional cards like Zeus, things of that nature that don't really banish or shuffle. Whenever they make the cards touch the grave, it's just super easy. So yeah, I just think this deck is just one of the best decks. You have like so much utility. You have so much consistency. You have so much recovery. You have cards like Op Cologne, Winda, and Construct to interact with your opponent. When I play against Prinkits, sometimes I won't even summon Winda. I'll just summon Construct, dump Aerial, and banish the targets that they're supposed to add off of Doodle Doodle Doo or Bow Wow Bark. And now they can't summon Battle Butler. But I will say, good Prinkits players shouldn't summon Battle Butler in the first place. But it's the fact that they can't summon Battle Butler and they also cannot summon Weather Washer, which is another big deal because I'm just telling you right now, the way that I play this deck, I leave them with just one Prinkit and I don't even have to summon Winda to do it. So those are just things to note because I know that Prinkids are kind of getting popular. I don't really know if they're going to stay popular. It could just be a trend just because people see Brave Token and they're like, oh, let's play it in Prinkids. But it's noted that you definitely can make that play. You don't have to summon Winda if you don't want to. You can always summon Construct, send Aerial, and it's going to hurt them more in the long run if you banish that one Pranks, because most lists play one Pranks. They're out of the grind game. They can no longer recycle Meow Meow. They can't put back their links. And Shaddolls already have a great grind game. You're just going to exhaust their resources and deplete it a lot faster. So it's not really going to turn into a grind because Prankids do burn out of their gas really, really fast. Like they run through the resources. In 2 turns, you're almost out of Pranks. And without Pranks, it's really hard because the main cards you use to recur all of your Pranky cards like Doodle Doodle Doo and Bow Wow, you can't recycle those with Prankids Pranks no more, and nobody plays Plan except me that I know of, so you just really don't have a grind game anymore. So those are just things that I point out because, you know, like I said, I know that Winda's good, but I don't just summon her just because I can. I really think about what's going to have the highest impact and the best follow-up. The best follow-up's the main thing because I care more about my next turn than my opponent's current turn when I know that they can't OTK me. So the highest impact and the best follow-up, but I should say the best follow-up and then the highest impact because I care more about my turn, like I said, than my opponent's turn. I value follow-up in such a high regard that I will make the play that's not even going to be the best play just because I get more follow-up out of it. And it's not about greed. It's just about always making sure that you can play on your next turn. You're not trying to make this big Ooga Booga board that says you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! I win, because conventionally every deck has a board that can be broken. So there's no such thing as an unbreakable board. And if you're putting all your eggs into that one basket, you can get punished really hard because your opponent will break that board and you won't have anything to play into the board that they make because everyone that breaks your board makes their own. And then finally, we have 2 Resh. I normally banish one for my main combo and just use the last one just to infinite loop. I just never run out of resources. And then we have Core. Core is goated, you guys. This card allows you to play through more negations, and it's not getting the credit that it deserves. So I've done this play so many times, but I'm going to have to point it out to you guys that don't understand how this play works. So when your Shaddolls Fusion or your El Shaddolls Fusion gets negated, if you have a way to dump Squamata, whether it's through Foolish or just anything that gets Squamata to grave, you can use Squamata to dump Core and use Core to add that back from your grave to your hand. And because the activation was negated, you can just activate it again. So Core being in your deck allows you to play through so many more negates, especially when you're on Mathman. You could just activate Shaddolls Fusion, then negate the activation. Normal Mathman, dump Squamata, Squamata dump Core, add this back, and then activate it again. And then finally Schism. This card's just insane. The best part about this card is not just that it snowballs so many resources, is that you can get consistent non-targeting, non-destruction spot removal whenever you need to. And with Lights and Darks being so prevalent in this format right now, Schism is just insane. And the card just... I feel like at this point it's bandless proof. Extra deck, we're on Gravity Controller, Cross Sheep. For the main combo, you guys know I love to leave my Cross Sheep on the field. I've always done this in Pure Shaddolls. I don't even play Appaloosa because, like I said, I literally leave Cross Sheep. And now the combos where I would make Appaloosa, I leave Cross Sheep and just summon Verde Anaconda instead of going to Appaloosa and get my DPE out. It's just better that way. And that way I can generate even more advantage, because I also will bring back my Riona the Magistus off of Cross Sheep when I fusion summon on my opponent's turn, chain block, get Riona, get another follow-up. So now, if they break my board, I have multiple fusion outlets. So, like, let's say it's Dragon Link. They're like, ooh, I broke your whole board. I got 2 negates and a bounce. I just got an extra fusion spell. So now, the fusion spell that I added back off of my fusion monster that I fused with, like SHADDOLL fusion, for example, even if you negate that, I got invocation. Because I left the Cross Sheep on the field, I was able to special this back from the grave, get her effect, search another one of these, and now I have better follow-up to play into your board. And then, like I said, Verde can either dump SHADDOLL fusion or Destiny. One of the other cool plays with this is in the Dragon Link matchup or any matchup that summons lots of lights and darks is, as you're navigating through their board, you can use Verde to dump Super Poly and clear Dragoons and things of that nature. It's really good. Boar Sword for kill pressure. We have 2 Op Cologne, 3 Construct. She is bait in this deck. You want to play 3, you have to play 3. She literally is the best Shaddolll monster. All the utility, everything you need. And she forces negates. Just like Op Cologne will force negates, she forces negates because her effect on summon is very scary. People just don't... Like, this card gets droplets and Veilered most of the time. Impermed. People will do that. But the thing is, the fact that she could trade with those negates, still be a 2800 body, and like, let's say you're using your construct, right? You activate her effect, and you can even structure your chain links to make construct the highest in the chain if you already know, like, you have what you need. If your opponent Ash Blossoms her, she can just attack into one of their monsters and kill them. So she will always trade with at least 2 cards when you're playing against established boards. She's just really strong, you guys. We have double Winda. I don't think you need any more than 2, but you don't want to play less than 2 either. We have DPE. This man is just phenomenal, you guys. Absolutely insane card. It's really good in this deck. He's goated. And then Starving Venom, just for people who either don't pop their Verdes or if they leave Rusties on board or anything. There's a lot of decks that are playing the Scythe package that still leave an extra dark, even if they do their best to get around it. And the other thing, too, is like, even though I'm saying it's like incorrect to leave Verde on the field, nobody plays around Super Poly because there's no decks that can play Super Poly in the meta right now that are meta relevant. Nobody's playing Super Poly, so people don't play around it, and they get punished. That's why I like main decking it, because they're not going to play around it game 1. But game 2 and 3, they might play around it, but I already got them game 1 because they didn't play around it. So I already won a game off of it, so it's cool. And then finally, Abyss Dweller to finish up the extra deck. Thank you guys so much for sitting through my profile. I know I can be long-winded with my explanations, but I like to go pretty in depth because being here, and if I don't tell you, you won't know, if that makes sense. But God bless you guys. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content, and y'all have a wonderful night. Peace.